adding things to it, and I'm not paying attention to all the new features they have. Okay, here we are. So let's go here. So questions. All right, let me get my little notepad out in case you have comments. Any feedback? How's this going? Let me go back to your gallery view here. Can you, do you, okay. So, technology, we're good with this? Nod your heads at least, okay. Otherwise, take, and then you can mute yourself or unmute when you are about to talk. I'm giving you a lot of information. You don't have to look at it, but what I'm giving you, if nothing else, if you shove it into a folder and come back to it later. So, you know, it might be over your head, or you might not need that information right now or last week, but those links and that information will be there when you are ready for it. So it's kind of, it all builds on each other. But what I wanted to say is, again, this is not a drawing class. My intent here is to get you comfortable with flesh and painting flesh. Painting hats and clothes we're going to cover, but it's really about getting flesh colors down. That's why I wanted a little bit of a simple faces, because I want, before we get complicated and into flat faces and whatever, I want you to be comfortable painting flesh. Not about drawing the portrait, not about, we'll get into composition too, but it's painting the flesh. Okay, I used those three mixtures. If you didn't have time, it will help you to really practice and experiment with those colors and with your colors. And you can do that on the back of paintings, but that is the most basic and fundamental skill. And you can do that on scrap just by mixing those little puddles like I had, like I was showing you. You know, these kind of little exercises, somewhere in here is your perfect flesh. And change colors, change your blue, and make note on there what blue you use and what red. But just play with this, because the more you get comfortable and the more interesting the color can be, the more lively and interesting your portrait will be. So the three triad, now, and I want to emphasize this again, because a lot of you were having trouble getting too dark with your blue. The blue, the reason I use blue is because if you mix the blue with the red on your palette and do it all at once, it has a tendency to turn to mud. And that is really important, and you'll start to find that as you play with this thing. The reason I use blue first and let it dry is because the blue, dry blue, and the red on top of it, the blue comes through the red and looks much more healthy, whatever. It doesn't look like mud. We'll still use blue with red, but the reason that red, the reason we put the blue down first is to get a base coat, and then we add the red onto it. So if your skin is light, you use just very little blue or no blue. But I mean, it's the lighter you go, the lighter the flesh. The heavier you go, then you're going to have to cover it up, and you're going to have dark flesh. So it's this trade-off, and I think some of you we're finding your blue might have been a little too heavy. Take my little swatch. Linda, I'll get you a swatch. And just compare what you did to what the results you got, and then make a determination, because you'll say, oh, this layer was too dark. Next time I'm going to go lighter than what I did right here. So it's a reference. Next time, make a little swatch of a lighter color. Okay, so you have a reference to go lighter from. All right, so baby flesh, we may go into, I got, whether it's this week or not, I have a little, you know, I've done demos of little babies, because babies have such soft, thin skin, and we may do that, because that's where little baby swatches come from. Babies have thin, light skin, no matter, okay, so just wanted to clarify that. Little reference value swatches, better to err.
Question.
Yes.
I was wondering, are we going to use the yellow at all?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
We didn't. I showed you how the yellow adds to the flesh color of the back of your hand. Yes, but we didn't in this one. Okay, where am I here? Okay. So it's better to err on light blue than going too dark, as you'll find out. And this is what I just want to bring back to you. If it's looking too dark, use less blue. And then
could I ask a quick question about that? Or are you saying, so, because manganese, both of the ones you're using, you can't, they're staining, aren't they? Like you can't lift that.
Yeah.
So you're saying, you can, okay. I mean, I had a hard time lifting it, let's put it that way. But is that what you're referring to? Or are you saying the next time we try a picture to go lighter? Or are you saying on a next, when you say to go lighter the next time, are you saying on the next picture we do of Logan, for instance? Or, you know, if we're trying to get that tone of color, you know, if we want a lighter color, the next time we try it, we go with a lighter color on the next picture. Okay.
Right.
Okay, that's
okay. It's just when you are using such a teeny tiny thin layer of blue, a certain amount, and that's what that little triangle of 9 kind of shows you, how a thin layer of red and a thin layer of blue turns into that value of like a number 8. So next painting you do, go thinner. Yeah. It is. Okay. Okay. It'll make more sense, that video I do of Oscar, I sent you a link to. Watching little Oscar will reinforce what I'm talking about. So that's just later on when you're ready for it, take a look at Oscar. Okay. Okay. So first week, any questions on your supplies? And again, this is not a beginning watercolor class, so I'm not going heavily into edges and the properties. I'm assuming that you have some of that knowledge. That's what I said. This is not a beginning watercolor class, and it's not a drawing class. So I'm touching on them and explaining them. And if you have any questions about edges, please let me know, because I'll explain it. But I'm not going heavy into it, because I'm assuming a certain amount of knowledge that you have with edges, wet on wet and washes and stuff. Okay. Okay. So don't hesitate if I skip over something, and that's why I'm sending you links to things too, is because if you need more information, I have on my webpage, I have more information, and you'll kind of hear my voice when you read it, because I don't write very well either. But I'm supplementing what I'm saying with those links, so that you can get more information. Okay, so now getting an image on the paper, we were just touching on that before class. And then next week, I think I'm going to do a little bit this week on the subtle shapes of the faces when we do the washes. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so let me move this over here. And, okay, here we go. I was kind of stressing easy portraits. Easy portraits are ones that aren't flat. Logan's portrait had a really dark, high contrast between the light and the dark. His was a little bit harder than one, like let's say this little girl up on top here. She has shadow, yet it's not crazy hard shadow. So it might have been better to start with something like that, but I wanted to show you that that hard edge on Logan's cheek, and I wanted to show you the lines. I wanted to show you that hard edge. I wanted to emphasize how the form of the face is, you can see it more clearly with that hard shadow. Like on the backs, on his edge of his face here, you can see how it rolls over. That's why I'm using that picture. It's hard edge and it's soft edge. This little gal up here, it's kind of all soft and you can't really find the edge. So, but it's more easy when they have some shadow. No flash, like this one in the middle here, flash camera, flat. Some of you showed me some flat ones. This gal on the bottom here, way too much detail, way too much shadow. This would be nothing but dark blue, and you wouldn't get much colorful flesh when it's all in shadow. Okay, now I have queued up here this guy of, I think, good faces to paint. You know, they have some shadow, the eye sockets. Okay, this is what I think is kind of the classiest and most complementary kind of images. And that's kind of what I'm describing here, is with some side shadow and some highlight, some side shadow. Okay, so these are good paintings. Well, all your paintings are fine. Don't get me wrong here. I'm just trying to say with this painting, this style of painting, see? Okay? Aren't they pretty?
Yeah.
So you kind of get the idea. A little bit of side shadow makes the contrast nice. All right. So
I find that very interesting because when we first got this picture and stuff, I was thinking, oh, wow, this is going to be so difficult because of all the shadows. And so you're telling me those are easier. So I'm just trusting you, Bill, because I know you know what you're talking about.
Well, it's using that blue. Yes, the shadow, because it forms the face. With a flash on camera, you have no form of the face. It's all flat. And so your face is going to look flat. When you get side shadow, you're going to be able to get some molding and the 3D effect. Getting a drawing on the paper. If you are an excellent artist and you can draw from a photo, great. We are not all that skilled at drawing from life. I do a drawing class on portraits and I will help you with that. But if you don't have the time, you might need some of these little tricks. Some people say any trick other than just drawing from eye is you're cheating. Okay, so some of you might believe that, and that's fine. This is not a drawing class, and And so I want you to be able to get an accurate drawing on the paper. And that's why people say, don't draw people you know, because if you get it wrong, you're going to be more distracted by, it doesn't look like Susie. Get more distracted at the likeness rather than the flesh color and your painting skills. So that's why they say paint somebody else. You know that. This is not anything new. But if you're gonna paint somebody really special to you and you get the paint and the drawing is wrong and something you will be frustrated throughout the whole painting. So again, the drawing from the start, draw lightly, get it accurate before you put the first paint on, because you can't lift the graphite easily once you get paint on top of the graphite. It soaks into the paper and you can't change the drawing. Get the drawing first, get it very, very accurate until you're really, really happy, and then start painting. Okay, makes sense. Cheating. Yeah, I'm not going to go a lot into this. It's, for me, it's about results, and it's not about these little techniques are not perfect. So you need to get a good drawing to start with. We all need to begin somewhere. Baby training wheels. What else I say? Sooner or later, you'll draw confidently and accurately. You will use these apps less and less, or these techniques. Okay, but we're going to talk about lines on the paper. If you overuse these drawing aids, whether it's tracing or whatever, the drawings can look stiff. And we're going to talk about stiff drawings. So even though you're tracing or using any of these techniques, keep your lines interesting and your painting will look better because of it. You need to be accurate and interesting. Okay. I sent you these links about tracing aids. Did anybody, I don't care if you looked at them or not, but they're there on that page. If you want to see other techniques on how to, somebody else's version of how to teach this. And these are my favorites right now. Okay, so these are really slick, and you might not tell all your friends how you did it. I mean, you don't have to lie about how you did it, but you don't have to say.
You have to advertise it.
You don't have to advertise this. This is you getting, it's you captured the likeness of Susie. Well, yeah, thank you. And the painting is rendering it, but this is not something you need to advertise. Okay, so these apps we talked about before we started here. This little method of using the cans works really well. And then I added to that this cardboard, which gives you some extension so you're not looking at the side of the cans. So Mary, those of you that just Mary, I guess,
Yeah.
this Android app called Artist's Eye. You can do the same thing like this with your cans with this app that's free, Artist's Eye, that we're doing with this fancy schmancy Camera Lucida app. That's the Apple app.
Right.
So,
I have an iPhone, but I only have a laptop. Yeah.
oh, okay.
I have an
Well,
iPhone, but I don't have an iPad.
Okay, well, you can use this Camera Lucida app, it costs you $9, and use your phone on the cans, and you can use that app to trace it.
Okay.
Okay, this is a wonderful invention here, and it's free. Sarah's beans. Okay. Now, lines on your paper. Let's get back, let me just move this stuff here. Lines on your paper. This is where we as artists need to shine. I was showing you, let me go down to this thing. As we look at this screen, pencil marks for hard and soft edges. That's where I was referring to young Logan here, where I have a hard edge, my line might be, my technique of getting the line down might be more continuous. A technique for doing soft edges, like his cheek there, there isn't really a distinction between dark and light. So that's where my and others will use dotted lines.
Okay.
And don't make the dots like dot, dot, dot. Make the dots like squiggle, squiggle, squiggle. In case the pencil line shows up when your painting is done, you don't want to make it look so boring that there's a dot, dot, dot. You understand it? Make it squiggly and gesturally and whatever. It's a signal for you that this is a soft edge.
Right.
Hard edges, like especially with the side of his face, are not really going to show because his face is going to be dark. But it is still on his cheek. The sides of his hat, you will never see those lines because they are going to be dark. So you can leave those lines. But still, make them like dashes and dots and squiggles and up at the top of the hat, you know, if you can see, you know, the top of his hat, like the creases go in and they go out and they go up and they go down. It doesn't go follow the contour of the hat. Make those lines like this, where they kind of have this interest. It kind of looks like you drew it. Okay? So same thing with the sides of the face and the shirt. Don't get crazy hard and just go, Make them, scribbly, gestury, outside and inside. Rebecca showed me her drawing. Rebecca, I wish you would have taken photos of your first line drawing.
Well, here I have one drawing that I did without any paint on it. I made another one.
Okay, hang on, let you see it, because that was, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, scribbly, gestural. Yep, that looks good. See, I mean, it's fresh and
And
it's,
I erased over it after I got the lines down because I didn't want it to be the pencil lines to be too harsh.
okay,
So I just ran a eraser over it.
okay.
Okay,
The bottom line is, if you're going to see the pencil lines in your finished painting, make those pencil lines interesting. Okay. 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 You will hear me say that again. This is the beginning of little Josie. If you can kind of see, this is only 5 by 7, but it is not a perfect drawing, because if it shows, and you might not even see it, but if it shows, it's going to look interesting. See her hair, be fresh and be flippy and gesturally. But when it comes down to the shape of the eye, that needs to be really accurate, and get a sharp pencil and really take the time to make that as absolutely perfect as you can, because that's this person's personality and likeness. But when you get into hair and the shirt and all this other stuff, go nuts and make it really interesting. Okay. So does that is that Aaron, is that kind of, okay. That's a key critical point. If your drawing looks like you traced it, people are going to say, Aaron, okay, got it, enough said. As you're putting this drawing together, you're going to make corrections. Keep your drawing light until it's really accurate. If you have to remove a line or lighten a line, first attempt is with kneaded eraser. It is the least damaging to the paper. So everybody's seen the little gray kneaded eraser. That little gob of blue tack I sent you,
Yeah,
is
that's excellent.
they're not sold. UMD used to sell it. They don't sell it in the US. I buy it by the 12 pack from the UK. So I gave you a little chunk of it. This stuff is far stickier than gray kneaded eraser. And then I said, if you need to rub a little bit more, then you can go to these Moo erasers, which are really soft and gentle, and then get progressively harder. And so they're all inexpensive, but it's just, you don't want to scratch the surface of your paper. Okay? Okay. Any class on where I was going with that?
I got a question, quick one. Bill, how many times do you paint a portrait before you feel good about it? Or is usually, do you get it on the first try? Or how many times should we expect to paint one before we feel good about it?
Well, how important is it? All right, here's a little, maybe this will answer your question, being vague. When I see somebody that paints this painting for their friends, it's like, oh my gosh, it was their 12th or their 50th wedding anniversary, and they paint it. And this is my first whack at it, and it's like, oh my gosh, it is so important, and it's so, I want to give it to them next week.
Yeah.
And you look at it and you say, oh, and it's like, is this the best you can? No, she goes, oh, I didn't say she. Oh, well, it's all she. This is the life I live in now. The person would say, oh, well, no, the eye, maybe I can fix the eye. The eye is too high, the eye is too low. Oh, I didn't get the smile. And it's like, and then you're going to give this to that person, and it's their 50th wedding anniversary. And of course, they're going to have to frame it and put it on the wall, because you just gave it to them as this cherished gift. And is this the best painting you can possibly do of this person? Well, no. All right. Then the answer is you paint it again. Now, the next one might not be as good as the first one, but if the second one is better, well, then great. You'll never be completely satisfied with the paintings you do until you've done a lot of them, right? So, so the answer is don't, like some of you have talked about doing pictures for Christmas. If you good luck, and but once you've done it, it's going to go on the wall, and they won't give it back to you, even though you've improved. That painting is going to be so precious to them that they're not going to give it back to you, and you're going to say, God, I wish I could do that one again. You can't get it back. It's on that wall, and they love it. So I don't know. That's
Months?
hope you
Months?
understand what I'm not. What you get to know my personality. That's what I'm saying. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what I was saying, I remember what I was saying here. With that little gizmo, Sandy, was
Yeah.
portraits if you're going to do a portrait for a wall, my feeling is, unless it's like boardroom size, 11 by 14 is kind of the right size for a portrait, because you put it in a mat and it ends up 16 by 20. And now you take a 16 by 20 and you put that on the wall of someone, and that's kind of the right size in a normal house. Now, if it's a big space, you can paint it bigger, and bigger is easier. So 11 by 14 is kind of the right size for a portrait. 5 by 7s are fun, but they're less formal. You know, that little one I just did for, or I didn't do it for, I did it because I wanted to do it. But these little 5 by 7s are fun, and they're easy. They're easy. Well, I won't say they're easy, but they are hard, but they're practice.
You know, Bill, we're still not seeing you talking. We see your board.
All right, let me go back to this. Yeah, you're looking at my board. Yeah, okay, you want to see my smiling face? Here I am. Get more of this. I'm doing this.
There. That's what we need.
Yeah, it's like this. Okay, so that.
There you go.
So I hope that kind of, this little 5 by 7 of Logan, the original 5 by 7, the original Logan, this is the one that you're seeing a picture of. So he's, I don't know what dimension this is, but that's kind of a nice size if you're gonna.
Yeah, that's a good size.
Yeah. This is, well, it's 10 and a half, so it's, yeah, so it's like, it would be like, it's smaller than 8 by 10, but it just happens to be the back of a painting I did.
Mm-hmm.
And this is 300 pound. But yeah, so I mean, it's informal and it's small. This little gal here, you know, it's only 5 by 7. You know, that's, you're not going to put that on the living room wall because it's only 5 by 7, but it's fun to practice. This is a quarter sheet cut down, and you don't feel bad, and I still have the back to use. So,
You know, Bill, just as an aside, you use 140, right?
yes.
Okay.
The difference, Rebecca, you know that there's going to be 140 and 300 pound paper?
I have only experienced 140. I've never used 300 pound paper.
Okay. It's like twice the thickness.
Okay. Yeah, I would assume that.
Yeah, so
More, yeah.
this is 140, this is 300, and you know, it's half the thickness.
What would be the advantage of the 300 pound paper?
It doesn't
So
work.
nice.
It stays flat.
It stays flat. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't pucker. If you are a very wet painter, 140 paper will pucker more.
Okay.
If 300 paper won't pucker at all, I don't think it'll pucker at all. Not the way I ever painted. So,
Bless you.
Thank you.
so I find that. So I use 140 paper. Just Arches paper doesn't matter. Those two pieces of paper I gave you guys were Arches 140. It makes no difference on the front or the back which side you paint on. There's a little bit of difference in the texture. The front of Arches paper is smoother than the back side. So if you wonder, you kind of look at the light and you get the reflection, you'll see that one side is just a teeny bit smoother than the other. They call that the front side is the smoother side. But if you like the coarser, you like more texture, use the back side. Of Arches, doesn't matter. Now I'm finding that Saunders does matter. So, okay. I've had good luck with Kilimanjaro on the front and back side. Because I use the back side because I don't want to and cheap. Okay, before we get the next step here is getting into painting, any more thoughts on that? Any little questions out there? Okay, how are we doing here? Okay, good, good, good. So in the coming weeks, I have more lecture-y kind of stuff like this. If you want to email me and say less lecture, more painting, or you're okay with lecture or whatever, but what I'm trying to do, my style of teaching is tell you the foundation kind of stuff that everything builds on. Because if you miss these little steps, sometimes it won't make sense. So I'm a foundational detail kind of guy. Because up here, I'm going to talk about brushes. I've passed that slide. Okay, before we start, I want to talk about, oh, here it is. I want to talk about brushes. And I want to show you my brushes because we're going to get into the detail work now with the eyes and stuff. Okay, so on my web page, it's called Favorite Watercolor Brushes. And if you want more information about what I'm about to say, I have this information on my web page. Okay, so here's a 5x7. I'll just put this pencil here as a point of some kind of scale. Okay. My common brushes are these soft brushes. This one's got water on it. This one does not. I like this kind of a brush. When I talk moppy strokes, I'm talking about strokes that do this. And you keep your, if I watch you with your little cameras, I will sometimes see okay, so this happens to be a number 10 brush. I get it wet. I'll just go into some paint here. I will see people doing, let me just get this right about here. Okay, I'll see people doing this kind of a stroke. Okay, I call this a broom stroke. Okay, now the problem with that is you're not blending. When I'm doing the sides, I like to do more wet, and I like more like this. This this is what I'm referring to when I say moppy strokes. You kind of keep the brush on the paper rather than. Now, I think acrylic painters and oil painters have a tendency to use their brush. Well, they are using their brush to push around paint because the brush is just a way to get the paint on the paper. With watercolor, you're blending. You're constantly blending. And so I see this method as more of a blending stroke than a brushing stroke. So mop versus broom. Okay, this is blending. So these soft brushes will bend more. Less expensive brushes will be stiffer in their bristles. So if your brush kind of does this, and you can get this kind of a motion with your brush, flat, a little side angle here. That's the thing that I think is important. You can step up. This is the silver black velvet. This comes to a point. It's just the bristles are cut to a point. These are kind of cut round. This brush is more, I can get more detail with it because it's, by its nature, it's pointy and more detailed, but yet it's still soft. Okay, so that is a real common brush I'll use when I'm trying to get detail, because it comes to a point. I mean, just the mark it makes is pointy. So that's a good brush to have. But today we're going to be using brushes that I'm going to be using. If you have smaller brushes and ones that really come to a point, when I'm going to be doing lines around the eye, I want complete control, and I'm using this almost as a pen. This happens to be a number 6 Lowell Cornell. I just bought it. They're not that expensive. I think this was probably, I don't know, $6 or something.
Would a 10 work?
A 10, a pointy 10?
Yes.
Yeah.
I got a pointy 10,
Yeah.
a long round.
Okay, but it's when it depends on the scale of your drawing. If you're painting something this big, you're gonna want a thin brush to get these details in here. If you have a number 10 brush that doesn't come to a point, you're gonna have trouble with these with getting that level of detail. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's this brush.
I have a littler one too.
Yep. It might be a rigger, might work.
I have a
another brush.
3.0. I have a 3 that's really small.
Yep. Okay. Well, you'll find out if you can't get a sharp eyelid line. This is another one, just to show you the difference between, and I talk about this in that. This Lowell Cornell brush is soft. See how soft it is? It pushes down. I can get a moppy stroke with this pointy brush.
They have those at the UMD bookstore, you said?
No, they don't have. I don't know what they have there. I haven't been there since COVID thing. None of these are really online, or they're all pretty much online. But I just want to show you the difference between, this is a soft pointy brush, soft, and this is all nylon and a very stiff pointy brush. This brush, this is called a Skoda, and I have this referenced in my thing. But this brush is stiff. This brush is soft. And this is another brush of the silverback. You see, so one is really stiff and these other two are really soft. And I use both of the, with a stiff brush, you can go in and you can lift because it's abrasive, because it's stiff. These soft brushes, you can't get much resistance. You can't lift very well because they're so soft, they bend. But a stiff brush has a benefit there because you can create abrasion with a stiff brush that you can't with a soft brush. So I use this little brush, and I'll use this black one here. I'll put down paint. I'll put down paint with this line, and then I'll have this brush in my hand, and then I'll come in here and then I'll soften this. And so I use one brush for detail and then one brush for softening. And that's what I'm going to show you today, is that this brush is really detailed and it's like a pen. And then this brush is tiny, but it's used for softening. Okay. So these are kind of my go-to brushes. Today, these are going to be, because I'm going to do more detail. This is a number 10, and these are down in the 6 range. But if I'm painting something, well, I don't have a, if I'm painting something that is half sheet, I might be able to get detail because I don't need it. I need it for a tiny little painting like this. Okay, so it's all relative, but I just wanted to show you the tools that I'm going to be using today. So if you have a more detailed brush, dig it out. Okay, and get 2 of them. Have another brush ready for one for paint and then one for softening it. Okay. Okay, all right. Okay, so if you still have a vial of your red around, we'll use that. That paint won't go to waste. So if it's settled, shake it up. If you need more, don't worry about making it. But if you have some, we'll use it. But don't make a new batch if you don't. I'll show you how you use the batch that you have. Okay. Now I'll get Logan in here. This is where we're going. This is where we're at. Okay. So, and these, I'll put him here. Put this color here. All right, and again, to show you my palette, I'm going to grab these two small brushes. I'll grab all three. And grab a tissue. Okay, in review here we have, this is my red, which happens to be, got some other color. This is M. Graham's cadmium red light. It's the same color as I have here, here, here. It's the same color as I have right here. Same red. Okay. This was the blue that I used, and this might be your manganese. This happens to be my peacock. So I have these close to one another. Be the same thing as I was showing you here. Okay. So if you're using this type of palette, continue using that, because we're going to be blending these two colors when we make dark. So we're going to have blue down here, and we're going to have red here, and everything in between will be between these two gobs of paint. Okay, and here's my yellow that's almost run out. So here I can make an orange. And
What
here I
kind
have
of yellow is that? What's the name of the
this
yellow?
is the Windsor Yellow Deep.
Okay.
Okay, so now I have that same, on my palette here, I have the blue, I have the red, and I have the yellow, and they're all sitting on my palette. So I get the same effect as this right here. So I can get this orange right here, and I get this red out here, and I get this blue out here, and I can mix them. The reason I have it here is because this paint I want to be pure and unpolluted by all these other colors. This is a place that I use that they can be polluted. Okay, you can just as easily bring pure red out here and leave this pure. And you can take your same dab of blue here and bring this out and have pure blue up above it. So this is just a technique that some people will put the paints on their palettes. Sarah Archibald, wherever she went. That's how she paints. She always uses fresh paint. So you can use that method, or I'm gonna use this method. And I just wanted to know the colors. This up here was my greens. This is blue. This is Windsor Blue Red shade, which is kind of like ultramarine blue. So here's, you got blue. This is Quinn Gold. And you can kind of make your greens. And this is Arilin. And so this corner here, I make my greens with. They're all together. And this is my ultramarine blue, because that's the classic for like brown hair and darks. Ultramarine blue. See how it's a little bit different color than, I don't know if you can see that. Ultramarine blue here is a little warmer than that other color. So that's the classic, everybody, nice juicy puddle there, and then burnt sienna. And then you mix the two together and you get a very nice, you get a cool brown to a warm brown. And so I put them together because I use them together all the time. If I want pure ultramarine, French ultramarine, I have a pure puddle up here. This is the same color because I want it to be clean. Here it's kind of always kind of mixed up. And this color is where we're going to go first. This is alizarin. This is alizarin red that it's a cool red. And this is Windsor blue red shade. This and this are the same color. So this color and this color I mix together, and then I make a nice violet here. You know, I can get this kind of a color. And then if I want to warm it up a little, I go back into my, oh, that's going to be a lot. I go into my base red, and I can warm it up, and then I can thin it out. Okay, so that's kind of, this is my lips and nostrils color right here, right here. This is lips and nostrils. And a little warmer, okay?
That'll help. Yeah, just a minute.
You have to talk and take.
Okay, great. I got it.
Okay. Okay, anybody else questions on my colors and why? I haven't explained why, what's the difference between the properties of paint. I think I touched on it a little bit, but you can kind of see, you see how French ultramarine blue is granulating here? See, there's little speckles. But this color does not. This Windsor blue red shade does not granulate where ultramarine blue does. And so that works really nice in rocks and hair. This one is smoother, less texture. That's really an example of, they're very, very similar in color, but the properties, this one is smooth, this one is more granular. Okay.
So
Yeah.
Bill, if,
Oh, go ahead.
if we don't have the Windsor blue, red, or red blue, can we just use French ultramarine? I mean,
Yep.
I know it's gonna have the,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, use French ultramarine instead. Yeah, we're not going to be using, we're going to be using such a teeny tiny bit that, but I just wanted to show you why I have both on my palette and they're both similar colors. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, Bill, I
Yeah,
wonder if
Linda.
you could do us a favor, or do me a favor anyways, and grid out your palette and label those. Because went too fast before I could write them all down.
Okay, these
When
are,
you shut the lid, don't all those colors just mix together, or do you just let it dry out that way?
I
Is
let
that
them
a
dry out
lid?
that way. I put in this little palette, and I think I showed you, this palette I did buy at UMD. This is the palette, cost $4.19. Well, when you open it up, I put these little strings in here. I another little invention. I put a little shelf in here so that the water doesn't mix. Here's a little divider I put in there to keep these paints from mixing with these paints, and same thing here. There's a
Okay.
little string here to
Oh.
keep this paint from getting over here.
Is that hockey tape you use there?
Say again?
Is that hockey tape or some other kind of special tape?
Actually, it is hockey tape. It's the clear, it is a clear hockey tape. Yeah. And I put string underneath it and then I just, nice and clean, and then I just lay it down on top of it. Yeah, it's the clean.
You know,
stretchy-
Bill, what
Very clever.
I've used also is I use hot glue.
Oh, there you
Very
yes,
good
excellent.
idea.
A bead of hot glue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent idea. That would probably, you'd have more control. Because this, the problem with this is it kind of peels up here.
Yeah, the hot glue separates your paints. Like if I need another color, I can divide my wells into different.
Oh, hot
I'll
glue, thank you. And you can still peel it up if you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's better than silicone. I was thinking silicone, but silicone wouldn't be as good. Yeah, this is the problem with the hockey tape is this. Good, we're all learning here. But these are inexpensive, and I love, the thing again I love about this palette is that it doesn't have paint over on the side here, so that when you close it, if you use this for plein air painting, if you close it, all your paint's not flipping over, and you know.
Yeah.
This is 12 colors, more than enough. And I don't even use these colors. I use a few. This is a green, and this is a turquoise, but I don't go to these. I put my gobs of paint on the palette. Okay. Yeah, I'll try to take a picture of that. These are the same colors I had listed on the what do you call it, the
Syllabus?
on the supply list. But yeah, okay, here we go. Time to paint. Okay, so the first, to emphasize, we painted this color first when we made our number 9. So the flesh, the lightest color on your fleshes is number 9. And that is the lightest flesh tone. We could very well be done with that right here on his cheek. The only thing we're going to go back to is if we want to add some interest towards the end. See, I just add a little bit of a dry thing here. We'll talk about that later. But that is kind of, that's an artistic touch. This is the light of his flesh. No blue. This has blue. You can see the blue underneath his nostril here. This is blue and maybe 1 or 2 extra layers of the base wash. And like here's a little bit darker yet as we get down. This is still darker than this. And again, use your little sample thing here. That eye is still darker. Here's the cheek. Looking at this one here, number 9. So, and this is, I'm glad I remember this. As soon as the shadow says dark, you are done being dark. It doesn't have to be as dark as the photo is. As soon as it reads, this is in shadow, stop. You can always go, you don't go nuts in making it dark because the photo is that dark. As soon as it says, this is dark enough, stop. And then when you're at the 85%, 90%, you can still go in there and touch up dark, but don't go too dark too soon. Different people paint different ways, and they want you to go in there and alla prima and put it down and be done with it. Well, I'm a layers guy. I would say if you want to go darker later, but don't go too dark too soon. Okay, so let's go in for detail now. I left these lines a little bit dark and you can kind of see their dots, but they're not complete line dots. They're just reminders for me. But ordinarily, I probably wouldn't have dots on my page, but we're not going to see those. You can maybe see, there's some pencil marks in here, but keep them interesting. Okay, here we go. So I have two paintbrushes. I have a clean one. And I want you to see my palette here. I have a clean one for blending. I have a tissue in my hand, and I have this sharp one. I could use this one or this one. Okay, and you got to keep them straight. Which one has paint on it? Which one has water on it? You're gonna, if you get confused, just rinse them both and start over. Okay, so my reference here, and you bring out your paper too. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to do his lips. I'm going to use this alizarin blend. I'm going to keep it towards, it's dry paper, and this is just kind of damp paint. It's not like really wet because I want control. Okay, so here we go. So his lips, I'm going to put in some of the, I got, here's my mixture. I could use it from here or on my palette, or whatever method you're using. All right, I put down a cool dark. Advertisements. Okay, let me get this out. Okay, now it should catch up here. There it comes. Okay, it'll catch up the exposure. Okay, so I put down this red now. I can take my brush and now I can blend it because I don't want, and then I can, come on. Okay. All right, I'll keep it close for a bit here. Okay, now this was alizarin. Now I'm going to go into my red. And now I'm going to go to warm. So I have alizarin and now I go warm, and here's my reference. You can look at your own reference. Okay, and now I'm going to go back to my alizarin for the crease. This is dry paper down here. And this corner of his mouth is in shadow. I put down alizarin, and now I go to the warm to mix with that on the paper and just kind of blend it in. So now this is just the first wash. I got a little bit of a glare here. Where's the glare coming from? It's coming from this side. Let's see if I shut this off. Yeah, that's a little better. Okay. Okay, so I have cool, and then I just blend it out. Now his lower lip, I have a light on here, so I'm just going to take the warm color here, the base color, and put it down, and then I'm just going to blend it. Okay, now that's probably good enough for the first wash. Underneath this is a dark space down here.
Is that all alizarin crimson? Or
No,
does it have...
I put an alizarin in the corner where it's darkest, and then I mixed it with the base red.
Okay.
So it's cool in the corner and dark, and then I lightened it up. I mixed the color. Now underneath his chin, underneath his lip here, is a darker color. So let's go dark. You see, okay, so here's under it, and then I'm going to go in with the red and blend that. Soft, moppy strokes. Now I take my wet brush and just kind of see, because it's soft on this edge. And I just want that to be, I don't want a hard edge over there. Okay. So that's, now I'm going to let that dry. So that I've got sharp detail of the corners of his lips. Now I'm going to go up to the nose. I'm going to go back to my alizarin, the nostrils. The upper edge of the nostrils is a sharp line. Okay, I'll move this here. And you can see that. So the upper inside, the darkest part of his nostrils is kind of alizarin, and I'm going to go a little bit with a blue. I kind of mix that. So now it is a very, very dark red, and I will show you that. So you can kind of watch. So this is now the color of the nostril. Okay, and you can bring that scrap of paper. So now with a detail brush, I'm going to go to the upper line of his nostrils. Okay, just the upper part. Now I'm going to go to the red. So I have really dark. Now I'm going to go down here and touch that and blend it. So now I come down here, and you got to get enough pigment on there. Now I touch that edge to wet. Now I kind of soften that. So I have the alizarin in blue blended with the red. Now I carefully follow that shadow line, because as it comes into sun, it gets warmer. So now I have dark all the way to this, back to the base red. And so that's one more layer.
What's in the base red again? Is it just like a watered down alizarin? I can't remember.
No, the base red is the cadmium red.
Oh, okay, the cad red. That's right.
That we
I
started
forgot.
with.
Okay.
Okay, so now the corner of his nostrils is pretty dark. So this is the alizarin. I put down a line right in the darkest spot. Now I go back to the red, and I immediately soften that and blend that off into that shadow, following that line there. So now I have really dark, and then I have this is another coat of the base red.
And Bill, when you say alizarin, you're talking just alizarin crimson, not any of the blue with it? When you
Well,
talk about alizarin?
it's
Or did
somewhere
you mix it?
between. It's somewhere in here. It's not.
Okay,
It has a little bit of blue in it.
all right.
Yeah.
It's the Windsor red blue.
This is, yes, Windsor blue red shade.
Windsor blue red. Okay.
Okay. Because there's also a Windsor blue green, and it's very different color. Windsor blue red. I don't have any Windsor blue green now. Okay, so now I got to keep an eye on this, because I put down that. Now this is one more layer. So this is kind of essentially a third layer of the base red. And this is a sharp line. And I'm just going to kind of go up his face a little bit. And underneath his eyelid is, so I'm just using this base as a red. Underneath his eyelid is a little lighter. So I don't want to go up there. So now I just kind of follow his nose down. And the side of his face is a tiny bit lighter. So I don't want to go there. Because now this is, I'll just kind of lift a little bit of that up. Okay. And if you get a little bit too much, it's damp. Now it's, I can lift it. So under his paper. Okay. So, okay, so let's keep moving up. You can see the shadow on his nostril. It's not as dark as the inside of his nostril. So I'm just going to put the base cad red right here. But you can see the flare of his nostril. It's light over there. So be very aware of that and keep that light. That little part right there is light. And then it kind of comes over here. See, underneath his nose is a little bit lighter. Now I take my damp brush and I just kind of blend this off so it's soft. Okay? And then this is just softening that up. So I kept that little reflected light on his nostril for now. You know, I mean, we can. Okay. Now let's move up to his eyes. With eyes, it really doesn't matter at this point in deep shadow. You can't see what color eye he has. I guess here I made it a little bit brown. So let's call them brown eyes. Okay, this is kind of a line, and the upper lid is a line, but it really isn't a line. It's blended. See, it's more like this, where there's a line and then it's softened. So this is a tiny little painting, so you need a sharp brush. Okay, so watch me do this. Okay, so I'm going to go into an eyes. Maybe next week we'll talk about, I'll describe it as I do it here, but next time maybe we'll talk about the nuances of eyes. Watercolor 2, we'll talk about this. Okay, so I am painting now the underside of his eye, because underneath the lid is darker. So now I'm going to go back into the alizarin, and I'm going to, his eyes. Now, if there's a glint in here, I would be aware of it. I'll make a glint. So I'm going to keep a little light spot here. Now I will, there's a tissue just to show you. I want to take, I'm not going to rinse the brush. I'm just going to take some of that paint off of it. Now I'm going to go back into alizarin. I want to change the color. This is, I'm painting underneath the lid. And now you got to look for, see how the duct kind of dips in and goes up? And now I'm going to go in with a little blue, and it kind of wraps over. This is very critical. Now take some of that brush. I'm going to go into this. You can't see it here. This is my burnt sienna, because it's, I want to change the colors. So now this is damp. Now I'm going to just dab this in here, and I left the highlight. Okay, now the upper eyelid, be very sharp brush, change color. There's a point to it there, and it kind of comes down and fades off. Now with my damp brush, damp, just like, I want to soften that edge. I don't want a line in there. Okay. Now with my base color red, I want to blend that into the rest of his nose there. So now that's damp. So I take some of that out. Now I'm creating this spot in his eye there. And then it comes down. This is darker right down here, and then it blends off. Take my damp brush and just kind of soften that. Maybe I want this a little darker. It's hardly dark. I'll go in for a little bit more rich, pure pink here. This is damp now. Let's see. Yeah, that's, I'll go dilute it a little bit, because this spot right here is darker. Put it down, and then I'm going to blend it off with a damp brush. And it's come down. Now this paint is damp now, so it won't have a hard edge. And it rolls over, and it kind of goes up. This spot here is pretty important, because that pushes that eye back. Now his lower lid is right in here. And now I can start to add a little bit of the blue. This is the original base blue right here. Okay. To make this darker looking.
That's the manganese, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And I kind of come in here and I can kind of, it's damp. This paint now has had a couple brush strokes on it. And now I blend it out. Okay. Now I'll go back to the eye. Okay, so now I want to make that eye a little bit darker. It's still kind of damp. I'm just going to go a little bit dark. This is not finished dark, but. And then this side, this corner right here is shadowed. So I want to go with base color. And right here is a little bit darker. And then it creates that little bag there and over his eyebrow and underneath the hat. Go to the damp brush and just kind of, when I say damp, I mean like this damp. It's like a number 5.
Well, it doesn't have any paint on it, right? Your damp
No,
brush?
just water, but very little water. It's like I take the brush and I do this. Still has some on it. Okay, so now I'm creating that form right there. And okay. Eyebrows are kind of this burnt sienna, ultramarine blue. His are kind of red. So I'll just go in there and just dot in a little bit of paint. And then I will take my damp brush again and just tickle the edges of it to soften it. And
What color was that?
that was burnt sienna and
Okay.
ultramarine blue, just to make the brown. He's got kind of
Eyebrows.
red eyebrows, so I'll put in a little bit of red eyebrows in here. All right. Okay. So you can see I'm trying to create this. There's a light side of his nose here. So I didn't get too close to that line. And now this is soft. There's no lines above his nose there. Okay, that's kind of like just the base color, but now he's got a little life in him. He's not crazy, spooky looking. So now going to the other eye, I put down blue. That blue is kind of interesting in there. So now I'll go with the alizarin again, following my pencil lines really closely, and I can go down into his pupil, leave a little bit of a white spot, wrap it around, go into my red, change the color, keep the color moving, and then his upper lid, and then there's a darkness above his upper lid, and then there's a duct there, and then it comes down and around, and there's the corner of his nose. Okay, and then now we go back into our damp brush, and we start to dampen the paper, blend it around. All right, I'll go back in and make his eye a little darker with the blue and brown here. Burnt sienna, ultramarine blue. Now I want to keep a glint. That's damp because I've been in there once. Now I'll just very carefully. It's better that you paint the eye too small at this stage because you're going to go back to this eye in later washes to make it darker. It's better to be short of the line than over the line because you can't bring it back. Later washes, you can go out to the line. So stay short of when you're down to this kind of nitnoid little detail, stay short because you know you're going to go back in. I'm going to take some of this paint off. You can see that. I took some of that wetness off of there, and I just, but this is like really critical, his eyes, of course. Okay, and then his eyebrow, I'll use that same kind of brown, and they're very faint, but they're up there. Just touch it in, and then blend it out. And this is still, I put so little paint in there that it's dry. I'm just going to darken that. So at this stage, it's better to keep the pupils inside the line than go to the line at the risk of going over the line. Okay, and so then I'm going to see that character of his eyelid like that. And that. Now, while I still have paint on the brush, this is dry now. I've long passed that. I can go and add a little bit more of that to this, and go to the base red, and just soften that edge with the base red, and then come around here and come down. Now you know the nose has that little dip in here, so at this point we can kind of see that, and keeping that nose light. Take some of this paint off. And while it's on my brush, I can form that. The edges of lips, you can't really see it on him. But if you look at someone on a photo, the edge of the lip between the lippy part and the top of the lippy part, there's a white line there. So we'll talk about that in watercolor too, but keep that little right above the lip. It doesn't, there's a little highlight there. Okay. So anyways, and then you soften it out. So he's starting to look human now. And so now you can just kind of move back and forth and I'll go a little bit further and then I'll stop. So now I'm going back to the same alizarin mix because it's lightened up. I go that for the corners and follow the little lip lines. If you see, he's got a little shape to his lip. In the peak of the lip, there's a little point that comes out. Now I go back to the base color and soften that alizarin and blend that with water. The bottom of the lip is the darkest, that little crease. So I'm just gonna put a line in there and then soften it. So here, but you gotta get the little nuances of the shape of the lip. Okay, and then I go into my flesh color. This is the lighter red. And then I'll blend that. Now he also kind of goes into, as most people do, this little node right here. So this is base color. So now I'll just kind of blend that corner down and around and then under. Wet, damp brush, and then that's going to be soft. Hit 5, and then that's softened. Oh, now it's damp. I can go a little darker. See, this is kind of light. Now that it's damp, I can just dot in this boop, boop on damp paper, and then it kind of blends out. And this is underneath his lip because now I have that paint on there. And now here's this color. Takes a little too wet. Boop, 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 boop. Kind of wraps around his chin there. And there. So now he's starting to come to life. But now you just keep going back and forth and you start forming this. Let me just do his beard a little bit. These brushes are a little small for this side of his face. But now that I'm going into this, I'm going to go back into the base red. His hair is kind of red. Let's see how that was really light. You see, that was really light. So I'm going to go back into this paint or on your palette and make it even darker. And that is hardly noticeable. I'll come down here. Now whiskers are kind of dots. I'll take some of that out of there.
What shade of red is that? That's the base red?
Yep.
The CAD? Okay.
Yep. Now I'm going to start to go into this blend of these two because now you can see this color. Oop, that's too bad. It's good to test that. You see this? This is dark flesh. This is the base color. This is a mixture that we were making our hand flesh with.
Is that the Windsor blue red or?
Yep. No, this is mixing it with
Manganese?
the base blue.
Okay.
Okay, so these two here, I'm gonna make some version of a violet because it's a blue and a red. And all I'm looking for is dark hair, dark skin, rather than have it just pure red over here. So I'm just gonna kind of knock it down and just kind of make it a little bit more interesting over here. Up at the very top of his hat is dark. This is just the very start of this whiskers here. And go back into a little red here. I want this edge to be soft. His whole neck is dark, so I can, this is gonna need a bunch more down here. And then this is gonna be a soft edge, so I gotta be mindful of that. And then, now this is damp. Now I'll go back into this fleshy dark mix and just introduce it. Okay, and then and now I gotta be mindful of this edge. So I get my, I want this to be soft. So don't let that get away from you. This is soft. Dampen the outside first to give it a place to go to. Now I'm just softening this edge. We're going to come back here more times. Hair, the edges of his hair is soft. Now it's damp. I can go in with a little bit more of this, and then you let it dry. Just a little. This is raw sienna, just kind of a. We're just looking for dark texture kind of stuff.
Did you say that was raw sienna?
Yeah, it's kind of just a neutrally raw sienna, yellow ochre, just a neutral yellow.
Would gamboge work?
Gamboge is closer to Windsor Yellow Deep. Gamboge is closer to this yellow. This is the darker, more neutral yellow. But it could work. But it's much more neutral than, this is more gamboge. This is more neutral. Okay, so now he's starting to get a little life in him. His ear, I didn't do the ear. The ear would be back into this kind of a wrong brush. The inside of his ear, the outside of his ear is done. Follow that little shape of his ear, and in here, and there's a little dark dip there. Yeah, maybe if that turns out. And now I go back with my damp and soften a little bit. Really, it doesn't need to be softened because there is hard edges in there. Okay, and you want to make it darker? You go in with a touch of the blue because that mix, and you just dot it right on the edge. Boop, boop. And one right here. Boop. And now that will blend with that mixture. Huh? So, I mean, it's a progress. You just keep going. Everything is dry now over here. Now his nose is still a little bit. But it's just now, once these darks are in, and we would do the darks with the shirt and stuff too. But from this point on, once you have the eyes established, now I call this next phase the modeling part, because you've got probably 50% of the painting done at this point. Now we're creating the shape, and that's the real interesting part. And you do use these brush for the details, but you use this brush for the modeling, because we're going to be starting to create these little nuanced shapes and these little dip, these little Adam's apple-y kind of shapes. We're not going to be doing that with this brush. We're going to be doing that as we model the face. Bigger brush, more moppy strokes. So this is creating the detail, and then we're going to be creating these layers of darkness. Eyelids are a little darker. This pocket's a little darker. Here it's darker. Okay.
You use again to outline his eyes. What color?
I was using primary. I want it to be. I don't want one color. This color of his eye, I want to be the blue, I want it to be the alizarin, I want it to be burnt sienna, because eyes, you don't want eyes to be one color, you want them to be interesting.
Okay.
But so primarily they were burnt sienna, which is kind of a warm, that's what I used.
Yeah.
But it could have been the alizarin mixed with blue, mixed with the base color. But the eyes aren't quite done yet because I don't have the lids in there, but sneak up on those.
Bill, for all of the outlining, or I shouldn't call it outlining, I'm sure that's not what you'd like us to say, but on the, for instance, on the eyelid, are you using your brush that you said wasn't as springy so that it's more, you have a harder edge to be able to make those lines, and then you're blending it with the softer brush?
Yes, yeah. I use the firm brush for super detail, and then I use the soft black brush to just kind of blend it off. And then I grabbed this other brush. So I use this color for whatever detail because it's very stiff.
Yeah.
And then I use this to kind of dampen the paper and blend it. And then I use this brush to add more of the base color once it's kind of dampened. Now I can, as it's coming out of darkness and going into light, it gets more into this color, away from the dark color. As it's coming out, it's turning red.
Okay.
It just, and it will turn yellow too. We'll use more yellow, and it wouldn't hurt to, on the lighter spots of his cheek, I'm just gonna go nuts here.
What, the moppy brush that you're using to model, what size is that? Is it a round? Is it a six?
Yes, yeah. It's a round. This is like a number 10 for this size paper. This
round
is a
number 10 to
round.
model. Okay.
These are for detail. This one is for the modeling. Soft and moppy. So now you start painting, and when you now look at little Oscar, you will see exactly what I'm doing in faster motion. This is kind of, we got like a little over an hour left. So why don't you paint and muster up some questions, and I will go get your cups of tea and go potty and paint, and then I'm going to look over your shoulder here, and I'll start again with Logan and just keep progressing. But I just wanted to show you, this was we have base coat of the blues, like the underpainting. Then we have a first wash of the red to paint the lights of the flesh. And then the next layer of the same value of red is for the shadow. And then this layer is for the details on the mouth, nose, and eyes. Then the rest, and you would be doing the same thing with a hat and a shirt. You would be keeping up with this, but I'm just worrying about flesh. So this is about 50% of the painting, and the rest is the modeling and the, we'll be adding more red for you that have too blue. You're going to be using maybe a richer mixture of the red instead of the diluted original number 9. You can kind of mix it with your pure paint and bring up the value now. So
would it be possible for you to put a little paint swatch of the color, the mix of alizarin crimson and Windsor blue red, just so we can get an idea?
Okay, yeah,
of the color you're mixing for starting with the edge of his mouth, the line.
So here is pure alizarin, pure blue shade. So I'll just put all 3 down there. Hopefully we can see that. Okay, so this is pure alizarin. This is pure blue. And this is somewhere, some violet-y concoction in the middle. You know, maybe you see that's a little bit too blue, so you kind of come over here and you kind of bring in a little bit more red. And, you know, so you kind of just, it's an infinite amount of violet here. But in the corners, the deepest corner, right in here, might, oops, this little corner might be way more blue. And then this is a little bit more red. And then this is starting to be the base color. Okay, so you see that? So the darkest spot, you might put a concentrated mixture of the blue, and then you'll move towards red. And then when you get into the lighter spot, you will use more of this because it's coming into the light. It's becoming warmer rather than this cool color. So what I'm saying is the corner of the mouth in the later stages might be more blue. And then you blend into that blue some of this alizarin. And then as it comes out, you clean up and you put in some of this red. So it's going from really dark to the warm base. And it's all blending there. And that looks way more interesting than one shade. See that? Yeah, that's it's kind of blending on its own. From almost pure blue to a strong mix of blue to red to all alizarin to the red shade. And then as the shapes of the lips kind of come down and around. Okay? And then as this dries and gets lighter, you'll do the same thing maybe 2 or 3 more times before the painting's over. Because that pushes that back. And this is the same color as tongue. This color here, this is the same thing as I'm saying. Way in here, let me make sure my brush is. Okay, way inside of here is more of that violet-y bluish to make it really, really dark. And then underneath the teeth is that mix of the alizarin, because that's pushed back, that's the back of her tongue. And then here's the corner of her mouth, and it gets really dark and more into that blue. But her tongue itself is rounded. See how it's not, where it's behind the lip here is dark, and behind her teeth is dark, but in the middle is lighter. So you keep that. And then teeth, there's no lines in the teeth. You make little dots where the teeth kind of go up. I mean, okay. And like that pencil might is a little bit darker than, because it's zoomed in 1,000,000 times here. Look at the size of my finger. So anyway, that's kind of as you move on layer after layer, you find how dark is. And see the same thing of the nostril. It's dark underneath, and then it's blended out. Yeah, you can see the eye.
The edge of Logan's mouth, are we, so as an example, right where when you started your demo, you started at the left corner of his mouth. So, and that was a darker, like you said, more darker blue, or blue with a little bit of red. But so is that blended at all? I mean, or are you, I know you, as you get into the lip, you're blending it into the lip and you're leaving that little white in there, but on that line, for instance, I don't want to make a mistake on the first little dot that I.
Well, the darkest the darkest spot of his lip
Yeah, that's,
is on the seam there.
yes.
So you stroke that
Is that-
out.
Okay.
Oops, hang on here. Here it's, okay, so the first line is the dark, and then you switch paint, and then you go to maybe the alizarin, and then you switch paint to the base flesh and go to this lighter spot. And just let them kind of blend together. And again, this will be, and you notice on the lip here, very subtle of the point of everybody's lip is lighter right here. So kind of keep that. It's not flat across. There's this little form, and on the dark side of the point of the lip is dark. It's darker right here. That's very, very subtle, but it makes this point come out as if you make this side of it go back. And I was trying to do that here is, you know, we've got a ways to go yet, but you can see here, this side of the lip, it creates this little pointy thing here, and it creates shape of the lip. Okay, so here is dark, Anita, dark, and then there's alizarin, and then there's the base color, this color here. Okay. All right. All right, so this is Peggy's. Yeah, yeah. Or dab it with a tissue or something. You don't want it to be lip lined. Hit it with your thumb with a tissue. Now move, but try to have more moppy, back and forthy, not slow down, slow down. You're going really fast side to side. There you go, more like that. That's it. That's moppy, not brushing.
Okay, that's helpful.
Okay, that's it. That's the stroke. And you're kind of thinking, you're just blending, you're swooshing back and forth. That's it. Okay, now move on to underneath the nostrils and bring that down in that shadow area. Slow down. Put in some base red underneath his nostril and just blend that, following that shadow line down. Yep, yep. A little darker, a little more rich. Soften that little, he's kind of got a little bit of a pig nose there. Go up into that darkness of his nostril and try to make that transition from inside of his nostril down a little bit. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, yeah, 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 okay. A little bit more alizarin-y, kind of a little darker underneath his nostrils. It's just to get rid of the roundness of his nostrils. Blend it down into his upper lip. That's it, right there. See? That's it. Now do it to the other one too. Yep, yep, there you go. Now you've blended his nostril into his upper lip. Nice, there you go. And then around his nostrils, side, left and right, and away you go. Yep, keep moving. Go up his nose now. Let that lips dry. There you go, right there. Perfect. All right, who's next? Let's see what else. Good, 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 good. See, I can't do this, and people can be watching. Gallery view. Who's next?
I'm having trouble, as I did before, with sharp edges.
Yep, yep.
And the eyebrows I see are way, way too much.
Yeah.
But
Are they damp? Are his
no,
eyebrows damp?
no, I can try and lift them with a damp brush.
Yep.
I was worried if I wetted them too much that they'd, I don't know, I'm a little too tenuous, and it's been quite a week, so I didn't practice. So this next week I have great hopes, but.
Okay, just tickle the edges of his hair and have a tissue wrapped around your thumb and just kind of blot up some of that around the edges. Just
Of the eyebrow?
yeah, yeah. Just kind of soften. Just be softening the edges of the eyebrow, not the whole thing.
Okay.
Yep. Just the edges, and now hit it with your thumb with a tissue on it. Nope, nope, no, with the tissue on it,
Oh,
just to blot that up. All right, blot. Wait a minute, I can't see. Or blot this eyebrow. Oh, you did that? Okay.
is that good? Is that better?
Yeah, no, that's way better. Then we'll just
Okay.
let that dry and we'll do the same thing to the other one. Now, just the top of his eyebrow, right there. And I'll blend that, take that brush and rub it up into his forehead. Just kind of stroke that up into his forehead. No,
That?
all right, no, along the hat line. Up to the center of his hat line. I can't point at it. Yeah, up
Like
there.
this?
Yeah, yeah. So you're dragging that brown. It's going to be dark up there.
Okay.
Now dab his eyebrow a little bit. Yep. Now you could, with that brush, now you've dampened it. Put a little bit of the base red up under his eyebrow there, up under this hat,
Oops.
and mix it with that eyebrow brown.
Okay. Whoops, I corked it. Just a minute.
So you're just kind of
Up here?
Yeah, yeah. Just up under his hat, because that's going to be really dark. Stroke that up and around, up all the way underneath his hat. Now you're slow down your brush, more moppy. All right,
That's
get more
right. I
paint
just
on
saw
that.
you say that.
All right, get some more paint on that brush. Get a richer paint. And just stroke it right underneath his brim, which is the darkest part of his forehead. Yep. Now it's damp. Now it should blend down. Yep. 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 Now.
All the way over?
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty dark over there. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now blend that down his forehead because it's really dark, and then moppy, you're strokey. No, yeah, there you go. Now a little blendy. See, blend. Oh, that's it right there. Nice. See that? And now you're forming. That
Oh,
forehead.
yeah.
And now it's damp. Now you could go darker. You could put a little bit of blue in there because now it's damp. Now it's warm. Now it's.
Okay.
You
How
can
about
just-
how about some of that stuff down there?
Yep. Yep. More towards the red. Yeah. Let's.
Like
Yep. Right there. Yep.
all right.
Now stroke that around that first brush stroke underneath his hat.
Really?
Right there. Up. No. Okay. Give it a line now. There you go. There you go. Now there you go. Stop. Okay. Now clean that off and go into the red. As it comes away from the darkness, it gets warmer. It goes to that red mix.
Okay.
Okay. Now just below that. Nope. On his forehead. There you go.
Right below
Now
it?
mop that in there. Okay. That's a little thin that out. It's a little dark.
Yeah.
All right, I can't see. There you go. Yep. Yep. Now go under between his eyes there on his above his nose with damp. There you go. Kind of just dampen that down, and it's coming as it comes into the light, it's getting a little warmer there. Yep. Yep, 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 yep. And then down around his eye. And yep, there. Now you've gone from a dark blue shadow into a warm.
Oh, yeah.
And you've created that.
Can I just say that when you showed her the mopping thing, I was like, oh, there's a secret. And then when you told me how to do it, because I thought I was doing it, but it's very slow and zen. And thank you, because that's just eye-opening.
Yeah, yeah, good. All right. His ear looks a little blue, but
Yeah. I
that's
can
all right.
lift some of that out, I hope.
All
Ooh,
right,
nice
I
brush.
just. Oh, thanks. Thanks. I tried to do the mouth
Yep, the mouth looks.
and a little, and the nostrils.
Yep.
And the nose is just really escaping me as far
Okay.
as trying to.
The nostril got a
And-
little big. The nostril is kind of like the iris, the pupil. It's
Yeah,
better to
once
keep
you get it too.
small than let it get out of control.
Okay.
The top of his nose, his
Just a-
nostril got a little big. Okay, you can see that. So
Can I try to get that off then?
yes,
Oh.
Where'd you go?
Here.
Just kind of.
I'm having,
focus.
okay,
His beard looks
so
good.
then,
I
no,
like
his
the dot-
beard is, well, but that wasn't, I think I was, again, you were talking about mopping versus,
Yeah,
I have that tendency to
yeah, but
not mop.
you've got texture in his beard. You've got lights and darks,
Oh,
and you will
Okay,
build on
thank you.
that. Beards, when you showed me, was that your husband, the one with the handsome beard?
yes.
Okay. As the painting goes on, you will be filling and making the spaces between the light whiskers. You'll be filling them in. So it's better to
Okay.
stay lighter. It's kind of like leaves on a tree. It's better to leave lots of sky holes because you're going to be filling them in. You can't give the sky holes
Okay.
back. So the white whiskers, it's better to err on the side of too light, and then as you progress through the painting, you start making the whiskers darker and more
Okay.
aligned and more whiskery. So, all right, I'm going to his
Okay.
eyes.
So
The
now
lip-
I'm gonna, now, and you're,
You have on the left there, you have paint on the
Mm-hmm.
left, but not paint on the right. Where in reality, the light is coming. Look at the painting, look at the drawing. You can see
yes,
go to move your painting there and see how the light side of it's right there. See that where you can see the one side
Right
of
here?
his lip. The one side of his lip has a high, on the lower lip.
yes.
So
Okay,
that's lighter than the other side,
Oh.
and you have it kind of reversed right now. But that's not a big deal, but I just wanted to show you that. So the light is coming from the left, so it illuminates that part of his lower lip and kind of makes a glint. And then
okay.
the other side of the lip kind of fades off a little bit darker.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, but that's just
Okay.
keep going, do the eyes and
So then when you start with the eyes were, let's see, the colors were burnt sienna,
yeah.
or what were you using? Or that was for the actual,
Yeah, I've
for
used
the
the
eye
eyelid.
itself?
The eyelids start with kind of an alizarin, and
Okay,
then while it's damp, change colors, and then go with a little of the base color, and then change colors and go with a little bit of a burnt sienna. It just makes it more interesting. And then when you
Okay.
drop down into the dark part of the pupil, you can take that shadow underneath the eyelid and just bring it down. And if you want to keep a glint,
okay,
but keep a glint and keep inside of the line. Don't go outside of the line like you did the nostril.
with the pupil, you mean?
Yeah, like you did.
You mean with the
nostril, made a
pupil,
little
it's,
bit- Yeah.
yes,
That's
okay.
That's a great brush you got there. It's really pointy. Aaron, are you mixing in the shadow, are you mixing the blue into that red?
I'm mixing in ultramarine blue with alizarin.
Into his shadow under his hat there?
I put another layer in.
Okay. His cheek, you're gonna wanna, is that damp? Is that all
Sure.
dry in there?
That's, yeah,
Okay, it's pretty dark. Yeah, that's really dark. Okay, this is kind of black skin, kind of African American-y kind of
okay,
blend, because it has blue in it. I think you put blue in it.
I
So
did.
you got a cooler and more black skin than a Caucasian redhead kid.
Yeah, okay.
So,
I'll do it again next time.
yeah, well, underneath his nose looks more like burnt sienna.
That's a mixture of the cad, the alizarin, and ultramarine.
Okay, Yeah, less blue on the flesh. Use the blue when you're going into like a crease of a shadow.
Okay.
Not so much in the open flesh, the openness of the shadow.
Okay.
But put his eyes in there, and I think he will look a whole lot better. Get in with the detail, because his ears match underneath the forehead, so things might just be fine. They'll all match. Yours is just going to be different color than.
I can make the background really dark.
Yeah, yeah. So as soon as you get the eyes in there to match the detail of the lips, things will pop out. His nose looks nice and sticking out. It's coming out of the shadow there. Get the detail in, Aaron, like you did the lip, and the eyes will start to, the face will come alive a little bit more.
Okay.
All right, so remove this spotlight. Okay. Okay, so who's next? Oh, that looks really good. His lips, yep. His nostrils blend right into it underneath his nose. Really, that's really nice. Oh, that's it. Yeah, get his eye. When you're doing the eyelids, do the pupils. Yep. Yeah, just get his pupils in there, and then they doesn't look like hollow spots. Yeah, that's the value of his shadow looks really good there. That one nostril got a little wonky, but you can maybe fix that. Yep. Yeah, while you're doing that under the underside of the upper lid, bring it down into the eye, no matter what color you're using, unless it's obviously a blue-eyed person. Take the under eyelid color and bring it into the pupil. Okay?
Yeah, I'm just showing you what I got so far. What do you think?
Yeah, you start putting in the details. That blue, I think you're gonna like. Yep. It just looks creepy because you don't have any definition in there yet.
Well, see right here, the line around his face, this looks messy compared to Sarah Archbold, who is such a neat and tidy artist. Look at this messy line right here.
Nope, yeah, no.
By painting over it.
You don't worry about that now, because when
Okay.
you start darkening up the shadow and putting
Okay.
more red over that blue, that will become less noticeable.
Is this all wet on dry?
Well, it's wet on dry with the first brush stroke, and then the next brush stroke is wet on damp.
So that's why you need that damp brush in hand.
Yeah, to soften the edges. Yeah.
Because that's why this edge got so harsh.
Yeah, and that's fine, because that is a sharp edge.
Okay. All right.
The beard is soft. Right on his beard line is nice and soft.
Yeah.
Over there, it's not a hard edge that you're describing.
Okay.
It's looking good. You just got to get some detail with the fine brush. And
Eyebrows, are they, how are we doing those again?
well, dab in something in like the center of the eyebrow shape, and then hit it with a very gentle damp brush, just kind of fluff them out.
Using our red base coat?
Yeah, just dampness. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so while you're doing that, like let's say the center duct of the eye.
Yeah.
When that duct is just dampened, take a nice juicy red base color and just kind of blend that into that pocket.
Into where the duct is a lighter color, you mean?
Yeah, let me just kind of point at myself here. Let me just show you what I mean here. When I did these lines, This line came down and around. And when I brought this line down and around,
Yes,
I took paint and kind of blended it.
okay,
When I was doing this, I was kind of blending it up and over.
okay,
when
and
I
you're
did this-
using,
well, whatever you were using, you draw the line for the detail, and then mush, and then just take the warm and just kind of
Blend it
blend
up.
that up, rather than leaving it.
okay, and since I,
Yours are stark
yeah,
lines as you're
yes, they,
coming
yes,
around.
they are.
Yeah, so just kind of as it's coming around, blend it up with the rest of it.
And so how should I, can I do that now? Try blending it now? Or is it not gonna work?
It's dry? No, just the next time, you just want to blend those edges so they aren't like drawn in with ink, they're
Yes.
kind of blended.
Yeah,
Okay.
I see what you're saying, but I could fix the eye duct, the tear duct by, I mean, I can add more shadowing around the eye to kind of pull the eye back a little bit, make the whole area darker.
Where did you
Or-
go here?
You can't see me because
Okay.
I'm out of battery on that phone. Oh, let me try this. Let's see.
Just hold it.
Let me do this. Bill, I'll just do this. Okay. Hold on, I'll just flip my camera. And let's see, where am I? Oh, geez. Okay, here. So if I just took the eye duct, if I brought my, well, if I want to get that, because that eye duct is really critical, it looks like you
Yeah.
said. So if I darken my whole all around the eye.
Yep.
Except above his eye, it looks like above his eyelid that there's a brightness area too, but like in the corner of his eye, except where
Yep.
the eye duct is, darken all of that, then that should push his eye back a little bit,
Yes.
right?
Yep, yep.
Okay. And I
right.
use my base color to do that?
Yep, yep.
Yeah, okay.
A rich
Okay.
base
I'm
color.
am I red?
Yeah.
Or am I blue? I was used the
Your
red
base
is what I was
red.
gonna. Yeah, okay.
Because it could be a combination of it, but okay, so let me just put some more layers on my guy.
Okay.
And I show you kind of what I was talking to Mary about underneath his forehead. I'm going to do kind of underneath his forehead. And this is kind of, Rebecca, you're talking about wet on wet and wet on dry. So
Yeah.
right now, he's still kind of bluish.
Mhm.
And that's fine. It's all relative, right? I mean, so right now I'm going to use my bigger moppy brush. And now I'm going to go in, I'm going to mix up this because it's settled out. Okay. So now, first stroke, it's going to be kind of wet. Okay, and I'm going to follow that line. Okay, and I'm going to look at my reference photo here. And he wants to be a little bit dark. So now, from that base coat, I'm going to come over here with this. Just pick up a little of the blue and just kind of darken that. Maybe a little bit more blue because it's damp now. Now I'm darkening a little bit more. Take some of that water out of the brush. Okay, and now he's gradually getting lighter. Now with the yellow, I can add the yellow. This is damp now. So now I can kind of throw a little yellow in there and you can kind of start to see just adds a little interest. Down this side of his face is light. So let's take this over into the background too. We did this at the beginning. Let's just bring that over here just because it's. Now I'm going to come down the side, his eyebrow. This part is light. And then I just kind of bring down a face and add another layer. I can come out over into up there now I've added, I first put down base coat, then I added blue onto the damp and I made that darkness. And that's what Mary was doing. And then it just kind of blends into the forehead. This whole area is dark up here. Okay. So I'm just going to blend that in. It looks like over, I'll follow that line on the hat. And now I've created a shadowed forehead. Get a little bit of a glare here. Okay. So now I'm going to, down here in the eye, I'm going to take that blue out of here. And I'm
Is
going
that the red blue, the Windsor red blue?
No, I haven't. I've only used that when I've used the alizarin. This is the manganese kind of blue.
Oh, the manganese.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's part of the triad, the original
Okay.
triad. So now I got to keep this damp over here. So now I'm going to come here. This is pure red. Now I'll bring it down the nose. I'm going to transition between the bluish dark down along his nose. And then now I'm modeling now. So now I'm going to come around his nostril and okay, now I want to blend that. Okay, so now I see, you can see his cheeky bone here. See how it's kind of light right here? So it's kind of, it looks like it's dark here, but this area is light. And that's kind of important because it shows the top of his cheek. Right next to his nose down here is dark. Okay, so I'm going to follow this nostril line with a little bit of a darker color down here. Now I'm getting in the detail area, so I'm going to go a little bit darker blue. And I'm going to come back into that nostril. And then I'm going to blend it out. Okay, and then here, and then, okay. And this is going to kind of come over here. All right, so now I've created, underneath the forehead is much darker. Okay. So let's keep going around his cheek. I'm going to go a little bit, a touch, just a touch of the blue in here. Because I've got these two mixing here. I can go full red or full blue, but I'm just kind of somewhere a little darker. You can see that. It's kind of that. Oops, you can't see that. Well, it's just a little darker. Okay, so it's like that. Just a little bit off, cool. All right, so now it's beard. I'm going to come down here, like I was saying to Anita, with a little bit of whiskers. Maybe I'll put in a little raw sienna because it's kind of, he's got red hair. Just somewhere in here. So now I've added this down to here. So I've got a red, and I'll just put some little kind of dots. And then underneath his chin is a little darker. So maybe I'll get a little bit of the blue in here. Okay, so because it's a little bit of a fleshy, shadowy. Now I'm just dotting it kind of in the direction of his hair growth here. And now I'll put a little bit more blue in it. Okay. And now I can transit just a tiny bit more blue of the same mixture because it's shadowed under here. And then kind of follow that up. And then right along the edge, it looks like it's darker. And then now it, I mean, you can't see that it's a blue in there, but it's just a darker, this triad color going on here. And right next to his ear is darker. And he's got his little, his dad calls it his, this is my nephew, of course. His dad calls it his Amish chin strap. You can't grow hair, you know, underneath his lip, but it's, this was a while ago. I hope I didn't offend anybody. So his mustache, the same kind of thing, is just this kind of little dotty part. And then it turns into a red here. And then there's kind of this red dotty, whiskery kind of a shape, and soften that little previous stuff. And, And then it kind of comes around. So I'm blending in what I just put down there with the red. So now I'm creating little hair kind of dots to simulate the little whiskers. And it does come up the side of his face, and which kind of forms the side of his face over here. And then what is that? It looks like it's even his hair's over here. All right, so that kind of, and then now down here on his neck is lighter, so I'm going to go into the pure red. And now this is another layer of base red into the shadow, because now it's forming his neck. So now I kind of mop that in there to create his little Adam's apple kind of shape. Now it's damp. Now I can add a little bit more in here. And then there's kind of the, over here. Now this is the other side of his neck. This is going to be a little bit darker, so I'm gonna, let's see if that's the right color. No, we better just try it. Okay, so now that forms the shirt. Now I want to warm it up. See, it's kind of a bluish kind of color. Now I come into the red and I transition into red. What's going on here? This is his shirt. Oh, this is, I think, this is his neck here. Now I can still, for fun, come in here and throw in a little yellow. In the dark thing, I can come in here with pure blue, and I can throw in a little blue. And we'll see if that is a terrible thing. But when you put in the pure colors, it creates kind of a little bit of an interest rather than over blending. Let's see what's this. Oh, this is all skin here. So let's make this lighter, because this is in the sun. Oops, that's pretty light. Just add some of the red to it. This is that's just a little too yellow. So I'll just make that go away. Okay, now this is flesh. Blending into that stuff I just put down. And then follow this line here. All right. The yellow got a little crazy. I can just lift it back up. There. Okay, now I'm going to go into the chin. So now he's starting to take shape. Let me put some shirt in there just because it looks kind of fun. I'm getting lost. Okay, so this shirt, there's white here, and then a shirt down here. Now, to make this red darker, I use alizarin. To make that red darker, I'm going to go into the blue and just kind of throw a little dabs of it and let it blend and float in there. Okay, and then that's white, and then okay, and then do the same over on this side. This part is alizarin kind of color. It comes down and around. And then there's this crease in here between his collar and the other part. What do we got for time here? Oh, okay. Okay. Now this crease, while it's damp, let's see. It might be too damp, but I'm going to go in with the blue right now. And just kind of throw in a little detail and let it kind of blend. Let's see what happens. And then kind of cuts across. That's too blue. I'll just knock it down with a little red now. So, okay. Now that's just like one wash on here, but it's, you know, as far as it goes, it's kind of in balance now. Now let me go back to his face now, and now I'm almost at towards the of his face. I'm probably at 75%. Now I want to. This is kind of the thing that I'm not quite to the Scarlet Lake yet. Okay, so now his face, Anita, are you back? You got to see this when I get here.
Yeah, so it's fine.
All right, so now I want, this is kind of the end stages. His face right here in his cheek is kind of flat. Up into his shadow is kind of flat. I'm gonna dry him, so I want to make sure this works right. If this is damp, it's gonna blend. I don't want it to blend. I want it to have hard edges, so I'm gonna mute myself here. This next stage, of course, you would have had the hat and everything done, right? And I can do a little bit more of the background after this, but I got 15 minutes left. This last little bit is when I take the flat face and I start to form like the jawline here, and I start to find these little variations, and that is done very moppily. Write that down, moppily. The eyes aren't quite done, but I want to show you the flesh. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my base because I don't want to waste it, and I can still mix it stronger here. All right, now I see a jawline here. This is where this kind of comes up. See this right here? It comes up because this is, so I can kind of come in here. That's a little dark. I'm going to just dilute that and soften that. All right. I want hard edges here because I find it's interesting. My style of painting says it's interesting. This is at the end stages. Down here, his chin kind of comes out. This point right here sticks out. This part goes back. So this very subtle, this goes back. Now I'm bringing that chin out. Underneath his lip, goes back. Moppy strokes, and then I can kind of come in here. And this forms up here. This is, I want to soften that. I don't want to, you know. This side of the chin goes in a little bit. A moppy, just a light, thin, nothing moppy. His whiskers come up a little bit. I can kind of add that in there. Now this side of his cheek is very subtle. You can't really see it, but you got to know it exists. Right here. It's the same thing as this, except it's over here. So I kind of mop in here, a little indication that his face is kind of coming in here, and soften it a little bit. Underneath his eyelid is dark, so I can kind of come in here, a little bit richer underneath there, and then follow his nostril down and around, and then the eye hole here. Now I can soften that. It's really not that white. That's so I can knock that down now. Actually, there's a hole right next to his lid. There's a darkness, and then there's the lower lid. So I'm going to very carefully go in here and do his under lid. Maybe make it a little bit darker. And then his upper lid, I can modify that with that original dark here, right here, and right here, there's a little darkness. And then as it comes around and shapes the nostril, that's damp now. And then in here, and then along here. Now I'll go back to my moppy. Okay, so I just pushed that back. All right, now let's go up to the forehead and make that a little value, maybe a little darker right in here. And underneath his hat. And follow it along. And I'm gonna adjust that with the damp brush. And come down. And here's the darkness here. Eyebrow, at the edge of the eye here. Now this is the base red again. Now the little nostril dot there. Now I'm going to blend that because up here it's lighter. But so I'm just going to soften that, bring that back. All right, his ear has a little bit of a shape to it. The earlobe, the edges of the ear have a little shape to it. And then there's a little hair in here. And let's see, he's got this, oh, okay, I kind of misread that. This is part of his flesh down here, his neck. So there's that crease there. I'm going to put it there and then I'm going to blend it out. And then this kind of goes down. I'm going to make that a little darker just so you can see it. So I'm going to go into a little bit of a blue here. It's damp now. Now you can see it. Oops, you can't see it. So now I'm mixing a little bit darker on top of that red, somewhere right about there. Now this is that fold of skin, that crease. Soft, it's blending now. And so now since I have it on my brush, I'll make a little bit underneath the whiskers a little more. Creates a little bit more dimension. Hairy. This is what I'm saying with Anita is that it's better to leave light spots because as you progressively add more whiskers, you're going to be filling them in. But by the dots kind of creates a little hairy shape. You know, it kind of blends in down here. I can kind of blend that in. All right, well, the nodes of the mouth, this is now probably 95% of the way done. All right, how are we doing here? All right, are we all happy here? This now is my little secret touch. Let me try this because I'm kind of rushing into this. Okay, let me mute me. Now, I mean, his face looks, I would still work more on his eyes. His eyes are pretty liney right now. You know, I wouldn't have this, you know, this much, but I want to show you this one little part before we get going. Now if you can see my hand looks cool. My camera, you can always tell if your camera is right, if you put your hand in there, because you know what your flesh looks like. He's a little cooler than he actually is, but I would say he is probably 95% done. You can see this here pushes back. You can see his jawline with that dry brush. It creates that freshness look right here. These little dry marks here they add character to the painting. You see that? Even with the same thing here. Okay, or even with little sweet things. You know, a little bit of dry edges are good, but it creates freshness. That's my. Now the last thing that I do is I use Scarlet Lake. I got it stuck over here on the side. If you look at the difference, This is, if you can see, this is our base color. This is my cad red. I don't think you're going to see this. It's really, really subtle. This is Scarlet Lake. It's a little orangier and a little pinkier. It's a staining color. You see, I don't know if you can tell. It's just a little bit pinker. And it's okay. So what I do is wherever the blood flows, I take this little Scarlet Lake and I kind of bring it over here just so I can work with it. And I just kind of, and I'll use a little brush because this is a little painting. And I add a little Scarlet Lake underneath the nose, right here. And it creates this warmness. I add it right here on the cheek. I can add it to the earlobes. I can mix it. Yeah. You just kind of throw it around a little bit, and it does something magic. Let me put a little bit more on the nose, right here, underneath the nose. A little bit on his lip. Find a little detail on his lip. And maybe on his chin a little bit, just a little bit. On his earlobe, tips of things, like right here, maybe a little bit in here, maybe a little like down here, and maybe a little bit here. Probably up on his eye here, just to spread it around. All right, it creates some little magic. It's very subtle, but it's kind of like the last little tidbit to create another color that creates a little bit of a warmth. So that was Scarlet Lake at the very, very end in a tiniest little bit. Like again, I'll fix his eyes, ignore this eye. It's just not done yet. It just needs a little bit more refining in here, and there's still room to, but that's, what do you think? That's kind of.
I think I need your video.
Yeah. Well, the whiskers, I have a little bit of a texture there in the whiskers. A little dots, kind of like, if there were gray whiskers, I would have left more white of the paper, and I might have had blue underneath it. All right. What do you, any questions? This is kind of the end of this show here. Sure. Are you tired?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's intense, but this Zoom thing, I mean, where else do you see,
Love it.
this level of focus? If you're sitting around a big magic mirror somewhere.
It seems like you can see so much more this way.
Yeah. And I can see your work so much
Yeah.
more clearly. Well, you can see
Great.
So
the
would
difference
you,
between these two. There's a little difference in, this is more, it's a different color a little bit.
Yeah.
But who cares? I mean, it's, you know, compared to some other, you know, it still looks like a red-headed.
Sure
you know,
does. Amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Bill. That was great.
Yeah, well, that is the basic flesh. And now next week, have some images drawn up, and we can go through those same steps of under, you know, blue, you know, as you saw the boy.
So we bring our own reference photos next time?
Yeah, I'll do a demo of mine, and you can now use these techniques to do your own. But you'll do
next-
steps.
And next week's Thanksgiving, so we don't.
Oh,
meet,
no,
right?
yeah, right. We miss next week.
Okay.
And I have to find a photo of somebody I don't like, I think.
Yeah.
Well, you don't feel quite the passion for it. Any other questions on the way out the door here?
Nope, it's
No,
good.
thank you
it's
so much.
great.
Thank you.